Hi, I'm State Senator Michael Rodrigues, and I'd like to introduce ourselves today. Have them introduce themselves, please. Representative, you start.
Representative Dave Sullivan.
And State Representative Alan Sylvia from the 7th Bristol District.
And we'd like to welcome you to Voices for the Hill, from the Hill, where myself and my colleagues in the state legislative delegation are going to produce this show monthly with the help of our friends from Bristol Community College and Fall River TV, and for the purpose of educating and informing our citizens in Greater Fall River on what's happening in Boston. And the new legislative session has just begun, and we have been very much involved with the process of setting up committees and getting ourselves acclimated to the new session. Bills have been filed, and I'd like my colleagues to begin by telling what committees. David, what committees are you on?
I'm on the Tourism Committee and on the Joint Committee for Mental Health and Substance Abuse, which is a committee that at one point used to be Human Services and Elder Affairs. It's sort of morphed into mental health and substance abuse. It's a committee that I've been on probably since the very beginning of my legislative career, and fits right into my background as a psychiatric social worker prior to becoming a legislator. I'm also on the Committee for Global Warming, and I think I'm going to be able to correct that problem by the end of the session.
If anyone can, you can, David.
Thank
That's
you.
for sure. And Representative Sylvia, yourself?
Thanks. First of all,
Yeah.
it's a great pleasure to be here with you gentlemen. The deans of my colleagues who have been there for a while, and of course we're missing State Representative Paul Schmidt, who couldn't be here. He's at a funeral. We wanted him to join us with this first show, but he'll be here in the near future. So this is a very exciting time for all of us, I think, but especially for me because I'm new at it. And I thank you for your guidance, both of you, Senator, in particular. You've been very helpful in getting me off to a decent start. And David, so much thanks. Representative Schmidt, who calls me daily to remind me of things. And I think this show, I want to thank Steve Camara and Fall River Community Television for doing this, because what a great resource it is to our community to have us to be able to share information about committee hearings, about what we're doing that could help people, and all the reason why we're there, to help people in our community, our constituents. So I wanted to say that because it means a lot. I know all of us, we talked prior to sitting here, and this is going to be something that I think will be a great thing. I have had the good fortune of being assigned to 3 committees. First of all, the House Committee for Administration and Personnel, which is probably going to be the least active committee. But it seems that the Speaker assigned you to a couple of active committees and one that is not so active, because the 2 committees that I requested, I did receive, and that was Public Safety and Homeland Security. Of course, my background with law enforcement, 21 years on the police department, I'm very happy to be assigned to public safety, not only because I think it's a major issue in our communities, all of us, public safety and our police departments, and what's going on with the firearms issue that we've all received many, many emails with regard to the Second Amendment rights issue. But also I was assigned to elder affairs, and again, a request that I made because so many people in our community, especially my area, when we're looking from Bank Street to the Tiverton, Rhode Island line, there's so many elders in that community, and I'm excited about being on that. And I believe, Senator, you are also on that joint committee, and
yes.
as are you vice chair of that?
I'm not vice chair of that committee.
I wish you were.
Yeah.
But I think it's great to have 2 people from the delegation sitting on that joint committee, because there's not that many folks. There's about 12 in all, and I think maybe we can do some good things for elders.
Right.
One of the things that we often do, though, is the expansion of all committees. We've got our fingers into everything, and the ability to work together. And I just want to say one of the proud things and historically about this particular delegation in Fall River, and I think that other delegations throughout the state are a little bit jealous of us, has been our capacity and our cohesiveness of working together when we prioritize particular issues. We work together, we communicate well, and we focus our efforts to make sure that we can push forward those agendas that are most important to our area. And we have some significant agendas sitting in front of us as far as the multiple transportation projects we have going on right now. There's going to be a significant revenue debate as well. And from my perspective, I'm concerned because of the challenges we have in our economy as to what's going to happen to those important services, especially to a place like Fall River, that help to keep people with their head above water. I call it sort of the safety net, and I think the safety net has been severed, and we have some challenges and big decisions to make on what we're going to do going forward.
Well, thank you. In the Senate, it's a little bit different with the committee assignments. In the Senate, I was appointed by Senate President Murray as Senate Chair of the Joint Committee on Revenue. Now, for many of you who don't know, revenue is the politically correct way to say taxes, because you're not supposed to say taxation anymore, right? So we call it revenue, but I'm chairing that committee on the Senate side this session, which is very exciting for me, because as many of you know, and we certainly know, that the governor has proposed a very aggressive tax package for this legislative session, and that will be heavily and hotly debated as we talk about transportation infrastructure needs in specific, and as we put together our FY14 general operating budget and the revenues and taxes that we need to support those investments in transportation and education for our elderly and public safety and environmental protection, and on and on and on. I also serve as Vice Chairman of the Committee on Public Service, which deals with all of our public employees, both at a state and municipal level, their retirement benefits, their hiring practices, what levels of classification they are in the state's retirement system, and there's a lot of issues in public service. And then, as Representative Sylvia said, I also serve on the Committee on Elder Affairs, the Committee on Financial Services, the Committee on Higher Education.
That's the difference with the Senate.
Right. There's only 40 of us. There's 160 of you to spread through all the committees, so we get a lot of committees assignment. And I would recommend, an advice to you as a newly elected representative is to attend as many committee hearings as you can. And it's difficult. You're not going to be able to attend every committee hearing because there are so many challenges to your schedule, but you learn so much at those committee hearings. And you will really, that's where you get to learn, not only learn about the issues, but also learn more about your colleagues, the chairman of those committees. And you will find that you will have as much opportunity as you want to participate and to involve yourself in the process. Do you agree, David?
I do agree with that, and I think there's another point with the attending as many committees and being there for as long as you can, is that when people take the time to come up to the State House to particular joint committee hearings and to express their point of views of things, we are their ears and eyes. We need to be present there, we need to be attentive, and we need to listen to their point of view so that we can arrive at good decisions on what we're going to be supporting and moving forward. The committee process is absolutely critical. It's that first sense of sending something out with a favorable or an unfavorable. It's an important first step, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be there and to be attentive and to be listening to the people who are testifying.
Yeah, and that's something, I think it's important for people to know is, first of all, again, I'm thankful. We spend a great deal of time together, I know that all of us have busy schedules, both in the district, but on the Hill, I know yesterday we were all together with the chiefs of police, and that I thought was a great meeting to hear their concerns and to spend that time. We had a conversation with the Attorney General and did some of those photo opportunities, but what's more important is to be able to share our concerns and because our concerns are the concerns of our constituents, and to have that opportunity. But the committee hearings themselves, which I find very interesting, we all submit legislation to file bills, and it's great, and it's not really that difficult to do once you have the wording set, and we sit with council and House counsel and or Senate counsel to get that finalized. But just to submit a bill isn't enough. We have to testify. I'm passionate about those things that I know that I've submitted, and I know that we all are. We've discussed some of those issues. So to have that opportunity to testify before that hearing is so crucially important, because that's what gets that, as you mentioned, Representative, to get that favorable decision, to get that on the House floor, to get that bill moving so we can benefit our constituents. Very important.
And you're absolutely right. It's to get it to the governor's desk is the ultimate thing. And I was just thinking, I was at the State House the day of New Year's Eve, and getting a bill through, and we got it. We got it engrossed, and we got it enacted, and we got it through. And I know we all will have that aggression to be able to, and I mean that in a positive way, but that aggressive attitude that we have priorities, and we're going to make sure that they don't slip between the cracks. We got to be aware of the time. We got to be aware of what's going on, the position of the bills, where they are, and who we may need to convince.
And that happened today. The senator's office called me this morning. I had a meeting at the chamber. You were tied up on a piece of legislation that we had to go on laws today to do, and we were right there for it. I think that's a signal of cooperation between us.
We always had. This legislative delegation, and David and I almost came in together. I came in a special election in the House in April of '96. David was elected in the fall of '96 and sworn in January of '97. So Representative Sullivan, we say David, right, we tend to be informal amongst ourselves, but and more formal in public. But David and I have worked very, very closely on thousands of issues.
Yes.
Sometimes we're on the same side, sometimes we're on different sides, but it doesn't really matter. What's important is that I know and respect David, as I know and respect Alan, as I know and respect Representative Schmidt, that they are dedicated to their constituents. They firmly are advocating for what they believe in and how to best serve their constituents and who elected them. And issues come and issues go. And I think that's a big difference between politics at our level and politics at a local level. Is that we don't take anything personally, because issues come and issues go. We're on the same side, we're on different sides, but when it comes to helping Fall River, we're all together, we're all around the table, and we're all working hard to push the agenda forward.
And I talked about that cohesiveness. That doesn't mean that we can't agree to disagree on a particular
We've
thing.
done it.
But that, absolutely.
Right.
There have been a number of times that
Right.
we've done that, but what that has done is actually given us the opportunity to come up with some very important compromises to move forward something that's going to benefit the city.
And maybe just a little discussion about the process, and we hear about committees and reporting bills out, but just so you know, Massachusetts is the only state in the country that has what's called the right of free petition. That not only we have the opportunity to file legislation, all of you have the opportunity to file legislation. And many people take advantage of that opportunity by filing what's called petitions. And a bill starts as a petition until it goes into the House Clerk's office, and then it gets assigned to a committee. Every single petition is assigned to a committee and becomes a bill. There are over 5,000 bills that have just been assigned to committee during this legislative session. All 5,000 plus bills will get a public hearing, and through a committee. They get assigned to a committee, and then the committee chairman, myself, and in my particular case on the Committee on Revenue, I co-chair the committee with Representative Jay Kaufman from Lexington. And Chairman Kaufman and I have met. We've decided how to group the bills into topics, and we've already begun next Tuesday, and I know that I'm not supposed to say dates because this is delayed, but we are already beginning having committee hearings on the legislation before us. In the Joint Committee on Revenue, there are 486 bills, I believe, filed, so every one of them will be assigned a public hearing date where any person, any citizen, you don't even have to be a citizen. Any individual can come and testify before us in the legislature on why this bill is a good idea and it should be passed, or why it's a bad idea and it shouldn't be passed, or ways to make this idea better, because you'll know as we move through the process, there'll be a lot of opportunities for amendments and changing it a little bit.
Well, that's absolutely true, and that's where the committee process really comes together, and we work on coming up with particular amendments to make a particular bill better that may make the difference between whether it gets a favorable or an unfavorable, and we learn from that process.
It should be mentioned, just because it receives an unfavorable doesn't mean that it'll never come up again. It can be introduced again
Yes.
In the next session. So
Right.
that's an interesting concept, because you know that the senator just mentioned over 5,000 bills. it's really amazing when you think of the numbers. And I read now, I've been reading, thank God I'm not at a point in my life where I just don't sign on to a piece of legislation, but I probably co-sponsored 80 pieces of legislation that when I read them, I firmly believe that, gee, how was it that this never came up before? I know you've introduced some things, and you as well, David. And you look at it and say, why didn't, that interesting one yesterday when I saw that on the wiretapping.
Yes.
I say wiretapping, that law has been in place since the 60s, where it involved really a RICO or a sort of the mafia. The reason why they were doing wiretapping was only for organized crime. But yesterday, when we heard that from the chiefs of police about the situation that exists with gangs now and the drug issue, and why hasn't that been updated? Because, so here's a bill that really, I don't think anyone standing there would disagree that this is important.
Well, there might not be anybody standing there that would
there'll be
disagree,
others.
but there are people that certainly have disagreed with that, because I tried to help get that bill through last session. Our district attorney, Sam Sutter, is a very vocal supporter of needing to update our wiretap statutes, and I agree with you. It's definitely time to upgrade them. But on the other side, you'll have the American Civil Liberties Union and who worry about invasion of privacy and big government, big daddy government. So there will, believe me, for every good idea, there are people that disagree with you, and sometimes, we have to admit, wow, I've never thought of that. That's a good point. What can we do to amend this? We always try to make everybody happy. We really do. We try to accommodate everyone's opinion when we can. And one thing I'd like to say, and what I often say is, we hear a lot as elected officials, why isn't government run more like business? We've got to run government more like business. Well, I can tell you I've done both. I've been in government and I've run a business. You can't. The reason being you can't is because, like when I was growing up in my home, same thing in my business, there's no democracy in my business. It's a monarchy. It's my way or the highway. I'm the boss. Well, in a democracy where every citizen has the right to their opinion, has the right to voice their opinion, and we have a responsibility to listen to that opinion and consider that opinion, it innately is not as efficient when you take all those opinions into consideration. And when I say consideration, real consideration, not just listening and giving some lip service, but really thinking about it. And we really try to do that at the State House.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment too on the issues of bills. Some folks may have the impression that a bill gets filed and it's either going to go that session or not. We've all had the experience of doing refiles, and that's part of the process, actually. You make progress during a particular session, but it may need more progress, and it could take 2 sessions, and in some cases 3 sessions, but it's what the final product of it is, and sometimes a bill needs a time for it to be ready to be passed.
And to get that support. I've been amazed, and I know it's sort of lobbying on our part, but I send a message off to other legislators asking them to support my legislation, and either will receive a positive response by getting a check mark supporting it, or not hearing back again,
right.
which is the what do you say? That's a
it's a polite way to say no.
Polite way of saying no,
Yep.
which is a good thing, and I'm really happy again that we're doing this show, because look at, I may think that a piece of legislation, a bill is this is dead on target, this is the thing that we really need, and then you hear another view, we all stand in a different position, whether it be more moderate to conservative to more liberal, but it's very interesting to hear the response from folks and how they think about these issues. And
I've been lucky that, and I wasn't able to this year, but for many years, new sessions I've gone up to, and I know you attended. Maybe you can talk a little bit about attending the Academy for Freshman Legislators up at UMass Amherst. And the piece of advice I would always give to freshman legislators is, don't overextend yourself in signing on to bills. because oftentimes, you know, David, we have advocates, and advocates are a good thing. Lobbyists are not bad people. They're all there to express their point of view. They're only going to give you their point of view on a particular issue.
That's correct.
And there's another lobbyist with the opposite point of view. So oftentimes, I found myself, I made this mistake a few times where I heard from someone, that is a great idea, I'm going to sign on to that bill. Come to find out, I wasn't told the other side of the bill. I'm like, oh, geez, you know, what did I do as co-sponsoring a bill? So, but because we either co-sponsor or don't co-sponsor a bill doesn't mean that we're not going to support that bill. Especially as once you become a committee chair, you know, you have to be careful to pick your battles. And as chair of the Committee on Revenue this session, where we're already setting up a battle with the governor and his tax plan, and our tax plan, I think, is going to be much different than the governor's tax plan. You know, I admire and respect Governor Patrick a great deal. There's no one that's really has shown more attention to the South Coast and Greater Fall River than Governor Patrick, and no one has done more to move one of the most important issues for all of us, South Coast Rail, forward than Governor Patrick. And we might have a difference of opinion on some of his revenue tax plans. So I'm not going to co-sign to a lot of bills and opposing him because, you know, like my dad always said, pick your battles.
Yeah, you pick your battles. You know, it's interesting when you look at the transportation issue. Like it's, we all know that deferred maintenance as a result of the big dig has caused critical problems in the Commonwealth. And it's difficult to keep saying, well, you know, it comes to the tax issue. Are we going to put those revenues forward, and are we going to address those needs? Are we going to continue to let, you know, the infrastructure deteriorate? But it's a balancing act that we're doing all the time, and it's a balancing act that's based on our discussions, whether it's with the executive office, whether between the two branches, whether it's with a lobbyist who are discussing and giving us different information. But it's going to be a challenge. You talk about the tax reform packages that are out there. We're also looking at transportation bond bills, and we have some serious things. But another thing that's important, I think, that people need to recognize is the workload that legislators do take on, is the time you take in your office discussing issues with different perspectives, different lobbyists, different advocacy groups who are there and presenting that as you collect your information, going down to particular forums, your committee hearings. I mean, you are taking in information from all different directions. And it's so important to be able to do that. Plus, just the dialogue that we have between ourselves.
You know, it's interesting you bring this up because the senator and I were talking this week about this. We had a tour from some youth come up from Holy Trinity School.
Right, it was Catholic. It was
Catholic School Day.
Catholic School
We
Day.
also had a group up from Talbot Middle School.
Right, from the Talbot Middle School.
And every time I would see him, he'd say to me, "Are you having fun yet?" And I think Steve said that. Are you having fun yet? I must be doing something wrong because I'm not having that kind of fun that I associate with fun, because I'm working about 15 hours a day with people in my office, and I go to the men's room and I come back and there's 6 people there from the social justice group that want to sit with me. And you know, you can't give them a bum's rush. You can't send them on their way in 3 seconds. You know, so there's been an intense, and you know, it's amazing that, you know, I have priorities in my heart and mind, you know, public safety, early childhood education. Those are the things that I went to Chairman Dempsey with, Chairman of Ways and Means, to push South Coast Rail, of course. Those are passionate to me. I know mental health issues have been to you, David, and you have issues that are passionate to you. But it's amazing that, you know, you have the folks come in that are so passionate about animal rights, and I understand. I mean, I have a cat, but you know, it's amazing that they see animal issues.
Wait till you get an elephant.
They see these animal issues as the most. They see it more important than health care. They see it more important than taxation. And I'm glad you clarified, Senator, what revenue really is.
Yeah.
Because we're going to hear more and more about revenue, and that whole revenue
be part of the discussion.
Taxation. It's an issue.
You know, one thing, you know, we often, there's an annual story in the paper. It hasn't happened yet about how many days we're actually in session. So, you know, they'll say legislators worked 110 days last year or 54 days.
Yeah.
You know, session is the fun, right, David? Session is session when you're actually in formal session and you're there and you're listening and you're participating in debate. But that's the opportunity that you get to interact socially with your colleagues that you don't see all the time because they're at their committee hearings in their districts. And that can be some of the most relaxing time. But otherwise, people and the kids, always, whenever there's a school group out, Senator, how many hours a day do you work? It's like you work every hour you're awake. You're sleeping at night. You're dreaming about what you have to do the next day.
How much
busier than I ever thought.
And how much time do you spend on the highway?
3 hours a day. I'm in Boston 3 days a week, but I'm spending 3 hours a day. I went up to the snowstorm, which I was crazy, but I had to be there. I said I was going to be there. And I left at 6. I didn't arrive till 11:15. Totally amazing. The amount of time we spend on the road. But, the other thing I wanted to mention, is seeing as this is the first show, is, we hear so much about negative about Washington and the Republican versus the Democratic thing. And I know we all have friends, colleagues who are Republicans, who, there are 29 of the 157. We have 157 seated reps right now. 29 of them are Republicans. We don't have that animosity that we hear so much on Capitol Hill, that we do on Beacon Hill. I know they're my neighbors. They sit across the hall from me. We talk all the time. We talk about issues. I have co-sponsored some of their legislation, their bills. So I want people to know that we're not at odds with these folks. We actually have lots in common with them. And so it's interesting. And of course, leadership may look differently at that, but it's interesting how well we get along. I don't know what I had in my head. I thought that we were going to go up there and not speak to these people.
Right.
It isn't that way at all.
And that's funny because in my senatorial district, I have 2 Republican state representatives. I have Representative Keiko Orrell from Lakeville and Representative Steve Howitt from Seekonk. And Representative Orrell, when she first came in, I think she's like, well, Senator, you're going to help me with that? You're a Democrat. I'm like, yeah, but we both represent Lakeville. We've got, I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care what Republican. That's not what it's about the people we represent. Sure. It's about the citizens and constituents of, in her case, Lakeville. And we, she's loosened up since then. And,
But that's getting comfortable with the situation. Right. That's getting acclimated, and that's such an important role for those of us who have been up there for a while to help individuals who are coming in just to get acclimated, in that they feel comfortable and giving a call and saying, "Hey, look, I know you've been on top of this topic. This is a very important thing with you. What is your perspective on this?"
I did when I chaired a committee once, Committee on Commerce and Labor. I had a very difficult issue relative to Article 9 of the Constitution. It was about interstate commerce, and the expert on my committee was a Republican. So I assigned the Republican as chair of the subcommittee to study this particular issue. It's like watching paint dry, by the way. Yeah. But he was into it. He knew it. He worked with the Boston Bar Association and the Mass Bar Association to upgrade our statutes relative to interstate commerce, and had not been updated in 42 years. So it didn't talk anything about electronic trade agreements or electronic agreements. He updated it, and people like, you're a Republican, lead the committee. I'm like, he's the most qualified on it. So, well, this has it's been a wonderful opportunity. A half hour goes by so fast. We're going to do this regularly. It might not be all of us. It might just be one of us or 2 of us, or with special guests. But if any of you have ideas for us on particular topics, please reach out to any one of us. And we are honored to serve as your legislators, and we are proud to bring this show to you, Voices from the Hill, to educate and update you on what's happening. So thank you. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks,
David.
You bet, Michael.
Yep.
As always.
Yep.
Alan.
Very
This is
good.
fun.
Thank you.